All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Meet Music Knoxville. My name is Nick Horner, and I am your host. The premise of the show is very simple. I'm pretty new to Knoxville. I think I still count as pretty new to Knoxville, and I'm going to go with that anyway. And I'm still meeting a lot of really great people, and this is my chance to capture some of that magic that happens when musicians and music people get together in the same room for the first time, not knowing much about each other, which is definitely the case tonight. Somewhat. Before we get kicked off too much, though, I'm hoping that this list of spots comes my way. I'm going to start reading it off of Chris's phone right now just to make sure we do it, because otherwise we'll get rambling and I'm going to totally forget to do this. But this show and Real Knoxville Music would not be possible without the support of Union Place Bar and Grill, Raven Records and Rarities, Energy Home Solutions, Hutch and Howard Realty Group of Keller Williams, and of course, the support of people like you who are listening into the show. So thank you so much to all those fine folks for their support of Real Knoxville Music. It really is a treat to have a community-centered radio station where we can try out things and build community. It's good stuff. But anyway, I'm so excited for this, and what's even I'm more excited about is that I am so afraid I'm going to mispronounce your last name because I've seen you on my Facebook friends you may know.
Right.
Since I moved here.
Right.
Bledsoe. Wayne Bledsoe.
Yeah.
That's right. And a man for whom the name has come up so much. And what's cool is that this is my chance to find out what's real, find out what these rumors are.
The rumors.
You know,
I want to hear the rumors. They're going to be better than the truth.
I can make up some pretty good ones on the spot. Even it's like that we could start some here tonight.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's easy. We'll do that.
Yeah. So Wayne, so first things first. Okay, we meet in an elevator. I'm trying to think of how many elevators there are in Knoxville.
There's a lot of elevators.
Yeah, there's definitely the one we were in the Sun Sphere. Yeah. There's got to be a count of that probably somewhere in City Hall. But you're in an elevator. What do you tell people that you are, because you're a man of many hats?
I don't usually talk to people at elevators, but if anybody knows me, they generally know me from I wrote for the Knoxville News Sentinel for 36 years. Yeah. I was the music writer, and I wrote mostly about music, but I interviewed all sorts of different entertainers and authors and stuff like that. My favorite interviews were like Kurt Vonnegut. Dolly Parton, Merle Haggard. I got to show Elvis Costello around Knoxville one day. Trying to think. Dizzy Gillespie.
Folks in the radio, you can't see me, but my mind is blown and my hands are waving around right now. Wow. Oh my gosh. This is going to be a very eventful hour of me asking you questions about all of those people individually and so on.
Yeah. So that's how most people know me. I mean, well, that's how a lot of people know me. Some people know me from association with WDVX.
Right.
I was on the original board of WDVX before it had call letters, and then I got off so I could write about it and it wouldn't be a conflict of interest. And then 18 years ago, my friend Mike Flanagan, who started a show called All Over the Road, when he died, I took over that show. So I've been doing a midnight radio show for 18 years.
Wow. And
then I just moments ago came from a show called The 6 O'Clock Swerve, which I host live at Barley's.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how most people know me. And believe me, I'm going to put, I was nominated for a Grammy Award for album notes because my friend Bradley Reeves and I wrote a book about a fellow named Arthur Q. Smith who lived here in town in the 40s and the 50s. And he was an alcoholic and sold his songs for like $15 and $25 a piece. And we wrote a book that finally gave him credit. And it was accompanied with an album on Bear Family Records. So that's, I want to start a music career so I can say I'm Grammy nominated. And it's like I never played any music. It was all writing.
It's like we got the studio here, and I'm sure Chris
Oh, yeah.
has some hours after this if you want to. Got plenty of guitars here. So, look for that, folks. You're going to see that coming.
So that's how people know me.
Wow. And also, like, you would not be able to say that in an elevator.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you, when my late wife and I worked at McDonald's, the best interview story is like we're standing in an elevator, and this woman standing beside us says, "I smell McDonald's French fries." And my wife and I looked over and said, "It's us." Because our shoes had picked up the grease.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would believe that. Well, I worked at a deli when I was in New York, and it was like, I just constantly smelled of rotisserie chicken, which is like...
I bet you're a popular guy. I would be standing beside you all the time.
It's funny. It's like veganism and vegetarianism was getting really big then, and, it just couldn't be the guy. It's like, I promise I don't eat it. It's just my cologne, or something. I don't know.
Well, tofu has very little smell, so,
Right, exactly. Maybe it's just like chicken flavored tofu. I don't know. Wow. Okay. So, well, let's get in. I have plenty of questions about writing and all of these various things that you've done. Uh-huh. But before we get there, you're from Knoxville.
Right. I was born and raised here.
Cool. Whereabouts?
I grew up in Hall's Crossroads, which is the northernmost part. My family is mostly from Maynardville, Union County.
Okay.
They were, in fact, anybody who is from Union County who says their family did not moonshine is a liar. My family all did moonshine. Yeah. Say what?
You're also a songwriter.
Well, yeah, I've written some songs too.
He's written a few songs.
Yeah, a few songs.
Cool.
Yeah.
You could start your music career. I'm serious. This is it, man. Grammy nominated.
There you go. That's like...
Who's sang your songs that you've written? I know Brandon Fulson.
Brandon Fulson and I co-wrote one. I co-wrote one with Kevin Abernathy. I wrote one with Sneaky Pete Rizzo. Who am I leaving out? I'm leaving out somebody. I can't think who it is now, but yeah, there's been a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those the Brandon's and Kevin's are they've all three of those have been recorded. So, yeah,
with Grammy,
Oh yeah, we got to put that out there. Grammy nominated, but didn't play any music.
Yeah, that's cool though. Cool, and You've lived in Knoxville your whole life. McDonald's was presumably here in Knoxville.
Yep, the McDonald's. This is a funny story. I don't know if you know who Russ Harper is. Russ Harper is the lead singer of the Melungeons and Evil Twin, and he was like one of Knoxville's most notorious punk bands, Teenage Love. He was the lead singer of that.
Cool. Writing that down so I can look that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
My late wife and I worked at McDonald's downtown, which there used to be one that was in one of the Butcher Bank buildings. I'm not sure what's there now. But Russ Harper, who scares people to death, his hair is like down to his butt, and he has this scary vibe. And the first night that he worked at McDonald's, I was working and my wife wasn't. And he was this guy, he was in the Marine Reserves, and he had a crew cut. And I just kind of looked at him. I didn't say anything that night, really. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, we weren't married then, we were about to get married. I said, there's this new guy started. He looks real conservative. I don't know if we're going to like him. And then the next night I washed dishes with him, and it's like,
yeah,
it's like, it's like, I'm going to be friends with this guy for the rest of my life. And I have been. He's a rock legend here in Knoxville now.
Wow. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
Man, those are great. And they always happen in the moments that you least expect them.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I guess before we get too far from the story, what elevator was it that happened in?
It was that elevator's still there. It's whatever I'm not sure what you call that bank building now. It used to be United American Bank back in the 70s. I don't know if you know who the Butcher brothers are. They had They had banks here in Knoxville. They funded the World's Fair. They were big people, and then they had one of the biggest banking scandals ever when their banks were giving out loans that couldn't be covered. And it's the day that the World's Fair ended. The FDIC descended on Knoxville and arrested all the Butcher people and closed the banks, and it was a big scandal.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I feel like I find out new stories like that about Knoxville just every probably like 2 or 3 weeks. It seems like there's another like little piece of crazy history and things like that have happened.
Well, it's interesting because like Knoxville is like, it's one of those, it's not 6 degrees, it's like 3 degrees with people. So the Butchers were from Union County, Maynardville, where my family was from. So everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. And so how old were you when you moved into Knoxville proper? Did you come here for school, or were you decided to move
Hall's
in?
Crossroads is just like a suburb of Knoxville. So, So I was always, you'd come downtown to go downtown to go to the movies and, different things like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So how about this? What about music? What was that like in your... Okay, so how about this? I'll explain it from my perspective. I moved here to Knoxville because I loved the Eastern Tennessee music community. Just a lot of stuff happening, a lot of community music making. It sort of seemed like it was percolating everywhere. Was it like that when you were a young person? And, what was it that drew you into the music scene sort of here in Knoxville?
Well, I grew up with parents who really like music. My stepdad listened to Hank Williams and all sorts of classic country stuff, so I got that from him. And my mom listened to Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Ray Charles, and I got all that stuff from her. And then I had an older sister who was like hip to everything. She was like the hippest little white girl. Like when she was 10 years old, she was turning me on to stuff when I was like, 5 and a half.
Yeah.
And so I had this real love of music, and Knoxville in the 60s was sort of on the other end of its big music boom, because Knoxville radio was really important. There was a station here called WNOX, and it was like a great country station. They had a live show called the Midday Merry-Go-Round, and it had been huge. People heard it, everywhere that signal would go. It's like, up to Kentucky and, down to Georgia nearly sometimes. People could pick that station up. So all that was over by the time I was a kid. It was all on the downswing. When rock and roll came in, all that country music stuff, the live shows, it all went out. And so there wasn't a lot of local music I was connected into. You could hear like bluegrass players. There were great pickers all over town. You just didn't know that they should be famous and weren't. And then when I became a teenager, stuff at UT was starting to kind of pick up. You had like Todd Steed was in a band called the Real Hostages. He later formed Smokin' Dave and the Primo Dopes. You had there was one of the early kind of punk bands here in town was called Candy Cream and the Wet Dream. And there was all sorts of things like starting to happen. There was a band called I don't know if you know the Amazing Rhythm Aces.
Name sounds familiar.
Well, they had
I'll still claim it's because I'm new here.
Well, they won a Grammy in the early 70s with their song Third Rate Romance.
Huh.
Yeah. It's a classic now. It's Russell Smith is the guy who wrote it, and they formed around the UT campus. They played Cumberland Avenue a lot in different places, and then they went to Memphis and hooked up with a guy named James Hooker, who was a piano player, and they recorded at Sam Phillips' studio. It was his son Knox Phillips who produced them, and that was happening. And that was kind of a big deal. I saw him open for Jimmy Buffett, I think in '76 at the Coliseum, and it was one of the drunkest, craziest ass shows I've ever seen. But they were great, and then country kind of started coming back. Con Hunley, he signed on to Warner Brothers Records, and he kind of became a big deal. So music kind of slowly came back, and by the time that I was writing, I started at the New Sentinel in 1981. By the time I started writing about music, it was like really on the upsurge. And you started having this cool kind of punk, but kind of post-punk scene coming on. You had college radio coming up a few years after that, and it was great. And one of the things, when I started writing about music at the New Sentinel, one of the things that I really wanted to do was to celebrate all this history we had with music and celebrate the people who were still making music that should be national stars. I mean, during that heyday I was talking about in the 40s, the 40s and the 50s, I mean, you had Roy Acuff came up in the 30s. You had Chet Atkins, Homer and Jethro, all the people like when Flatt and Scruggs first left Bill Monroe. Knoxville was one of the first places they came. Carl Smith, who not many people remember, but he was a huge hit maker in the 50s. Don Gibson, who's credited with writing Oh Lonesome Me and I Can't Stop Loving You. You know, he was here in town. Kitty Wells came through town. I'm leaving out so many people, but it was like Knoxville was a stopping point before you moved on and went to Nashville to the Opry and places like that. Chet Atkins, he hooked up with the Carter sisters here because the Carter sisters were here after they broke up from the Carter family. Mother Maybelle brought her daughters here, and they were on the radio here. And they found Chet Atkins, who was then a fiddle player.
Oh, my gosh.
And hooked up with him and took him to, I think, Missouri. And he was playing guitar by that point. But then they got an offer to go on the Opry, and they said, well, we want you, but we don't want that guitar player guy. And they said, we won't go without him. So, you know, that's how you know Chet Atkins all over the world, is because they took him to Nashville, and he became an A&R man for RCA Records and recorded all this stuff. I'm a wealth of this,
I love it.
History. But,
yeah,
so you had all that stuff going on that had happened, and I wanted, one of the first things I did when I actually became a writer at the New Sentinel was I wrote a week-long series about the history of country music in Knoxville. And I got to interview all these people. And it was great. And, it's like it was the first time anybody had sat down and just documented kind of start to finish what had happened.
Wow.
But then things started happening that, other local people I could write about that were coming up. So I made it a goal to celebrate local music and try to get the recognition, local people to appreciate what they had.
Man, that's amazing. That's insane. Well, because I don't know. It's there's such a pride thing here in Knoxville, which is great. I mean, that's one of the things that drew me to it. You know, it's like Knoxville loves Knoxville, and it's cool that you were able to sort of coalesce all of that information and bring it into a place where it was, really instill some of that. So that's cool.
Yeah, and there wasn't. I don't think there was that pride in the '60s.
Yeah,
like when I was a little kid, and it kind of slowly came up. And one of the things is you had in the '80s, you had Ashley Capps, who's a music promoter. He started, his first company I think was called Windsong. Then he formed AC Entertainment. He started a club called Ella Garou's. This is after he was bringing in all sorts of great musicians.
Right.
Started a little club called Ella Garou's. It was one of the first businesses down in the old city. The old city was like this rundown area that had some of these old businesses that, you didn't go down there unless, nobody went down there for entertainment unless you were looking for a hooker. But, so he started that, and it helped revitalize the old city. There was Annie's, which became Lucille's, which is also doing it. They had jazz. But Ashley started bringing in all these acts that normally bypass Knoxville and gave people this music that they hadn't been able to get. And then around that same time, WDVX started, and they started like playing Americana music, playing, the John Prines and, Steve Earles and the people that the other radio stations were not playing. So you had this thing going on, and then both of them were booking local stuff too. Ashley would book local bands to open for national acts, and people would see those. WDVX a little later after that, started the Blue Plate Special, so they could, local performers were playing in the middle of the day, kind of the way the Midday Merry-Go-Round had been. So once you had, and I don't want to leave out WTK because WTK started doing the same thing. Benny Smith was really instrumental in getting the college radio at UT going and bringing in live artists, to perform and talk and promoting shows and battles of the bands. And it helped create a community of people going, well, if we start something, people might actually hear us. And very few cities have that. Knoxville didn't have that. But everything started happening, and now it's like this is where you go to get your music career started because you can get on the air.
Right. It's accessible.
And I was writing about it, and Steve Wildsmith later was writing about it, so you actually got some print media too. So it's just a whole lot of things happened so that the Knoxville music community could recognize itself and then maybe get recognized by other people.
Yeah. It's fascinating history. It's cool. So when you, before you started writing, before you started writing in this way, were you like a precocious writer as a kid, or were you doing a lot of reading? Like what was sort of the inspiration specifically for the writing element of it?
Both of those things, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very much a reader, and read very things. By the time I got to college, I'd already read most of the English stuff I was supposed to read. I'd already read it. And my older sister got me into writing poetry, and then I got on the school newspaper staff and wrote stuff for that, which was always kind of weird and perverse. I also did a cartoon for them, like a comic. And I do artwork too, so.
Huh. Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've done cover artwork for people.
Right. I did Brandon Folsom's and Hands on the Humbles, and then Josh Smith's, J. Michael Smith. I did... Of course, Yak Strangler, my son Ryland's band, I did their album cover. That was the first one. And, I just did Kevin Abernathy's last EP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember seeing it and being like, oh my gosh, this guy, like I said, it's like sort of like, oh, he writes, he does radio, he does the artwork. Were your... Well, obviously, you said your parents really loved music, so they clearly, pushed you to pursue a lot of different creative stuff as a kid. Sounds like.
No, they didn't push me for anything.
Oh, yeah. they
they just sort of they didn't hinder it or anything. I mean, if I needed driven someplace, right. I could convince my mom to take me some weird ass movie or something. I get this is a good one. My grandmother, 1972, the Rolling Stones played at the Knoxville Coliseum, and my grandmother, who was always really hip, I wanted to go see the Stones, and she was going to go. I mean, she went to get tickets, but they were sold out by the time she got there. I would have been 12. But we wound up, because she couldn't get tickets to the Rolling Stones, we got tickets to Sonny and Cher. So we went to Sonny and Cher.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't like the Stones with Stevie Wonder opening, but, it was my first concert.
Yeah. Well, where did you go see Sonny and Cher?
I think they were at Stokely Athletics Center. They were either there or the Coliseum. I can't remember.
Huh.
But, there were a lot of, I saw Elton John a couple of times at Stokely Athletic Center. It's torn down now.
Yeah.
Jethro Tull at the Coliseum. In the early 80s, I was already working at the paper. I finally got to see the Kinks, which is my favorite band. Probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say it's my favorite band. I mean, I love all sorts of bands, but, they're the ones that I've followed consistently, other than the Beatles. And the Beatles are like the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, when people say they don't like the Beatles, it's like, I mean, they've done everything. You have to have something you like.
Yeah. Something's wrong with your brain if you don't like the Beatles. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, I think there's a trigger that happens when, I guess maybe it's because the Beatles are so aggressively whatever they are, that it's like for some people that's very off-putting.
Oh, it's I'm just too cool for the Beatles.
Yeah.
I'm just too hip, and screw that.
Yeah.
I got paid to be an asshole, really. I mean, I got paid to write my honest opinion about people, and I did. And I got, occasionally, people wrote or called up saying they wanted to break my arms. But, I was not a snob. And it pisses me off when people are snobby about music.
Yeah.
There are things that I like that are so unhip and uncool, and I don't care. Yeah. It's good, it's good. To hell with you if you don't like it. I understand. I understand if you don't like what I like. I don't hold that against you.
Yeah.
But it does,
Well, it's funny. I work with a lot of young songwriters, just in various capacities. Mm-hmm. And one of the things when we're listening, yeah.
It's a little hot in here.
Yeah, it's a little hot in here, folks. I don't know that you can... Real Knoxville Music is going to be start sending out heat vision or heat something. We're going to send little heaters so you can just feel it.
There you go.
When you listen to this broadcast. Working with young songwriters, and one of the funniest things that happens is young people. It's especially. I came from a very conservative background. Mm-hmm. Biases out the wazoo. You didn't have to have a reason to not like something. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. When you're songwriting and you're opening yourself up creatively, you just need to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the big question I always have with students is like, why, you know, express the reason why you don't like something. If it's because, oh, this is stupid, that's not a good reason. Or if it's, you know, and it's crazy how in our culture we let that go so often, you know, not really processing the reasons we feel the way we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the way we are now especially is everybody expects you to make a judgment immediately. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I always bring up Tom Waits. You know, when Tom Waits first came out, who liked Tom Waits? You heard that voice, and it was like, it put you off immediately. And then it's like the second time you hear him, it's like, well, that's not so bad. And the third time you hear him, you like fall in love.
Yeah.
But people don't give that enough. We're not conditioned anymore to give things a chance. We're supposed to make an immediate judgment. And I mean, it's like when they used to call up for radio things, and here's 5 seconds of this song. Here's 5 seconds of this song. You like it? You're not like it. You like it? You're not like it. And it's like, well, how the hell do you know?
Yeah.
All you do is say, well, that's familiar, so I kind of like it. If it's unfamiliar, which is, I mean, one of the things I do on my late night radio show is I, occasionally play things that are way, way left field for people. And people will call up and say, what the hell is that? And that's the response I want. It's like, listen and give it a chance and see. But a lot of people don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, one of my favorite things about being around here, so I was in New York for 7 years, did not drive because I'm a sane human. And what's so cool about being down here on my 23-minute commute or 18-minute commute if I am desperately late for work is the fact that I can put on the radio and I can just, like, the radio around here, I get to hear stuff that I've never heard before.
Right.
I mean, where I grew up, it's you had the 3 stations. You had the country and the rock station and then the pop station, and it's just amazing that I can. I don't know. That medium was very dead for me. Like being in central Pennsylvania, and it's so awesome that that's alive down here. So thank you. Basically, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something. Now, you lived in Pennsylvania. Do you know the band, the Innocence Mission? They were in Lancaster, I think, is where they're based.
No.
You need to hear them.
Okay.
They're in your neck of the woods, or at least in your state.
Yeah.
They're one of my very favorite bands, and they're great. It's a husband and wife, and then they have a third player that plays bass or kind of auxiliary stuff, and they're amazing. They're terrific.
What kind of music are they?
It's very pretty, sweet singer-songwritery stuff, but very deep.
Wow.
They've written, Karen Paris is the main singer-songwriter. She's written a lot about death. Written a lot about...
Sounds like my kind of writer.
Yeah, very deep stuff. When her parents died, it was like she has these 2 albums that are just like amazing.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's honest and real stuff. It's not... they're not making it for the radio or any place else.
Right.
They're making it because that's what they want to do.
Man, I love that. I love... I don't know. Like, okay, so here's my question to you. Mainstream artists, let's say the last 20 years, who's real? Who are the people that you listen to and you're like, oh, this person who is profoundly famous, really is putting something out that to me feels human?
Well, the one that I defend the most is Taylor Swift.
Got it.
And people look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
She's a good writer. She writes about what she knows. I interviewed her first when she was 16. I got off the phone.
Oh, she's also from the Lancaster area initially. Phoenixville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I got off the phone with her, I cut off and I said, this is the most together 16-year-old I've ever talked to. She knew exactly what she wanted to do. She was writing her own songs, and she was just writing about what it was like to be her, which is still what she does. And, maybe maybe you don't like the production, or maybe you get tired of this album or that album, but she is a real artist. Mm-hmm. And, Britney Spears is in the news right now with all sorts of stuff, and it's like, I have all the sympathy in the world for Britney Spears, but I have no idea whether she can sing. I have no idea, if she's an artist or not. I reviewed her show one time. The entire thing was done to tapes. It wasn't very good. And while I have tons of sympathy, it's like, you could tell she was not in control of what she was doing. She was being told what to do, and it was fake.
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty, and she sounds good, but as I always used to say, it's like, you like the producer or do you like the artist? And with Britney Spears, you like the producer, and with Taylor Swift, if you like her because of the art.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get that same sense from her. What are your thoughts on? Well, the one that always strikes me is I've really liked. Granted, I haven't listened to the very newest stuff, but I always thought Billie Eilish was doing some really great things for young people, just in terms of being present.
I think
and
she's good too.
Yeah, speaking her truth.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, I mean, a lot of people can speak the truth and write the truth, and they suck.
Yeah,
and I mean, I appreciate what they're trying to do, but they're just not very good. But when you have that combination of you're trying to deliver something real, and you're good at it, you can tell it. It stands out.
Yeah,
and I think, I mean, I'm old. So when I listen to the radio, a lot of times I don't get it. It's not for me, some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can still tell what's real and what's not.
Agreed. It's amazing how that happens when you just hear like a song flick on and you're like, oh, there's something in that lyric
Right.
that is that's unique to that person.
Yeah.
And
A good example locally is the Pinklets, who've got a show coming up tomorrow night. The Pinklets, I've known them since they're still teenagers, but I'm friends with their dad, Kevin Abernathy, and I've been listening to them since like Lucy, the lead singer, was 10. So that would have made Eliza 8 and Roxy 12. And when I first heard them, it was like, damn.
yeah,
these girls are great. Lucy played me a song when she was 10 years old, and it was like, there's absolutely, this is like, it's about a kid. It's exactly what a kid who's 10 years old would say, but said so well that it's better than what these Nashville songwriters write. And it's like, where does that come from? Of course, part of it comes from she got a dad who's one of the best songwriters in town, and that's what her example is. But they're terrific. And, they sing about being teenage girls, but they're great, and it's real.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm going to reiterate this. I'm pretty sure I've said this on the radio, on this show at least twice in the maybe 6 shows that we've done. I am the most impressed, Knoxville-wise, from this really young generation of late teens to early 20s artists that are here, because it's clear that that community and all of that effort that people have been putting into making sure that this was a bastion for local music, it's happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they're ready to go.
Yep.
These young kids are,
and the most interesting thing to me is it's finally hit that like the most exciting in this generation are girls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I mean, when I was growing up, there was a handful of female singer-songwriters or artists that you could see, and, everybody knew who they were pretty much. There were very few of them. Mm-hmm. And now it's like things are at least 50-50, and maybe in Knoxville, the new ones coming up, I think it's much, much more girls than it is guys.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Yeah. And do you see that, I mean, is it mostly of the front people songwriter types, or is that like of instrumentalists, musicians in sum total, or
it's more vocalists than songwriters, but I haven't been out to notice like the individual. Of course, I don't know. I mean, some of the rock bands. I mean, Mercy Lights it has like Sarah Washington on bass and Michelle Morrison Quist, I think's her last name, on playing guitar, and she's like, they're great. I just saw them the other night, and they just kicked ass. And so you're getting more of that.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing more women in bands.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just had the show that I just came from that I hosted. I had Bark on, which is Tim and Susan Lee, and it's a husband and wife team, and it's 50-50. I mean, it's totally equal, and it's great. It's like, Tim had a band before Susan joined, and it was good, but it's so much better having the two of them together and playing off each other. I mean, I think you need that. I mean, I get tired of testosterone all the time,
Yeah, for real. Well, and that's it. You know, it's like I think that that balance is so healthy and important, and like like you said, you're sick of testosterone. We're missing that. We've been missing that for so long in music.
Yeah.
On the whole, I mean, just you men running every part of the process, and even to the point when like Britney Spears is on stage, but besides her backup dancers, I'm pretty sure it was mostly men behind the scenes and men deciding this and men doing that, and
Well, I have to tell you a really good story that when I was interviewing Amy Mann one time, we were talking about, and I was saying, in the 70s, it was like you had Joni Mitchell, Joan Baez, Judy Collins, Janis Joplin, who wasn't there for very long, and if you were real hip and you knew Laura Nyro, those were kind of the main, like, kind of powerhouse, singer-songwriter types. Joplin wasn't a songwriter, but those are the ones that you knew. And, most labels just like had one woman. And when Amy Mann, when she went as a solo artist, she was trying to get signed, and she said that she went to one label and they were interested, but they said, well, we already have a female singer-songwriter. And she said, what am I, a talking dog act? You already have a female singer-songwriter? It's like, you can't have two? I mean, give me a break. It was just so silly.
yeah.
And thankfully that's changed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, it's like the for better or worse thing with like the demise of the music industry as it once was. It opens up the doors for more uniqueness and more of an individual voice, and with that it's people get to try things different ways, and that's more accessible and that's more approachable to women. I mean, I've spent, I haven't spent a lot of time. I spent some time around business stuff, and it's just like I would never want to be a woman trying to do what I do.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. No, I mean, the way I see it now is I think it's totally opened up. I mean, it's like, and pop music is really, at this point, dominated by female artists, I think. I mean, rock and roll was definitely a male thing, but pop music is more female artists, and I think more of them calling their own shots.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Which is great. Okay, so we don't have too much more time, but since I have you here and I can pick your brain, what are the I'm going to say 3, just out of the blue. What are your 3 favorite music finds of the past year, 2 years? Doesn't have to be local, or just 3 that pop into your head.
Well, let me narrow it down a little bit, I guess, because I'm surrounded by music.
Right.
And I've known him for a few years now, but I think Adeem the artist is becoming an absolutely amazing songwriter and performer. I think he's got a couple of songs that just absolutely just tear you to pieces. Yeah. And I think he just gets better and better. So he's somebody I think everybody locally should listen to. Mm-hmm. I'm always saying Kevin Abernathy's the best one of the best, if not the best songwriter here in town. But I've known him forever. I've known him for, I don't know, 20 years now, maybe 15 years or something. Mercy Lights, I think that was their first show that I saw, and it was remnants of Pagazi 51, and Sarah's been in a bunch of different things, and they were terrific, and I'd never seen them before. I'm trying to think who else that I've heard lately that I thought that really.
Well, it's also tough because of the COVID stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, just even though down here it was relatively open through most of the pandemic.
Most of the clubs were closed.
Yeah. Well, when I compare it to like New York, it's just that place was shuttered, and it's still, kind of still is.
Yeah. Well, people like me and my friends. The Swerve was shut down until 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's live music for that sort of thing. It started to open up other places, but things are just now getting back to not even where they were, but just getting going again.
Yeah.
But, gosh, I can't think of anything that I've heard. I'm sure I had a show where I had people just send me in stuff they were working on during the pandemic. And it seems like there were some things in there that I heard, but my brain's gone blank.
Yeah. Always happens, Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But I'm also listening to old stuff, too. I'm always discovering, old music from the 30s and the 20s and stuff like that.
Well, do tell. What's something cool?
Well, I'll tell you, if you've never heard the Boswell Sisters. The Boswell Sisters were a trio, started in the 20s, and they have these great harmonies. They were jazz pop singers. Connie Boswell went on and had a solo career, but the Boswell Sisters, they'll blow your mind. They're so good. They're just,
yeah. I feel like I pulled up at one point. I was in a traveling brothers harmony duo. That's how I first found Knoxville. We played Blue Plate a couple times, but I feel like I found maybe some of their clips on YouTube.
Yeah, there's some out there
on YouTube. Yeah,
yeah. One of them, I think Connie. I think Connie is the one that was paralyzed. Her legs were paralyzed, so you'll always see him sitting down. She's generally at the piano.
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool.
But great stuff.
Yeah, is there It's tough when you do the stuff sort of we do in music stuff for a living, for your bread, for your life. Mm-hmm. Do you, in your spare moments, are you listening to music, or are you going with the silent option?
Both. I mean, I don't listen to that much music in my home right now, just because I listen on the car. And used to, when I was working at the New Sentinel, I was listening all day on headphones. Mm-hmm. And I was listening hard because I was reviewing stuff. You listen to something the first time through, you kind of are not paying that much attention. The second time, you have to pay it real close attention. And the third time, you're picking it apart.
Yeah.
But, I'm always going out to music in my late night show all over the road. I always, now, thank goodness, I can have musical guests in again. So it's like a little private concert. And it's like what we're doing here, except somebody plays music after we talk for a little while.
Well, that's what you're going to do after this, right? When you record your record.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's going to be same format. Same format.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. What instrument do you...
I don't play.
You don't play?
I do not play. I've really tried to play the guitar. My late wife picked out, showed me how to play Ode to Joy on the guitar, and I worked probably for a year trying to play bum, 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 and I, every time I would screw it up. I've always thought, I need to drop acid and try to play the guitar, and maybe whatever that wall is that's in my head will go away. But
man, I say this all the time to people who are learning, especially it's like if you're learning past that part of your youth when you're just a sponge,
right?
I think the ukulele is the best instrument to start on. Yeah, I mean it's easier than the guitar. It's like 4 strings. It's basically a major chord. Mm-hmm. So worst comes to worst, you can just really
strum the whole thing.
Yeah, strum the whole thing, and it's immediately participatory and fun. And you can also get I play a baritone ukulele, and so it's like in the same range as a guitar.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to feel like you're playing a Fisher Price,
do you know the ukulele orchestra of Great Britain?
Not specifically. I mean, no. How about this? No, please go ahead.
Yeah, you need to hear them. Their version of "Teenage Dirtbag," song that was by Wheatus, is revelatory. It's like the ukulele orchestra of Great Britain. I think there are maybe 10 ukulele players. Mm-hmm. With all different forms of ukulele, and they're great. But that song is amazing.
Oh my gosh! Okay, wait, what's the song again? I need to make sure.
It's called "Teenage Dirtbag."
Yeah, because I didn't know the original.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Dirtbag. And of course, I mean, Jake Shimabukuro is like everybody.
Yeah.
He's the Hendrix of the ukulele.
Yeah, and he was just at Open Chord, wasn't he? Yeah, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he comes through pretty often.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he went on tour with Tommy Emmanuel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Tommy actually got his start kind of in the U.S. in Knoxville because he would go to the Chet Atkins Days event in Nashville. He was good friends with Chet Atkins. Chet Atkins was his idol.
Yeah.
And the head of the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society is a doctor here in town. And so there was a big Knoxville contingent up there, and they brought him here to play. At first place he played was Broadway Sound, probably to 30 people. Then he played the Osseley Circle, which is a little place, like a little clubhouse thing. And I guess he played maybe 50 to 60 people. Then he played, the next time he came back, he played the WDVX or WNOX Auditorium, which has been torn down. And that was probably a couple hundred people. And then, it's every time he played. But Knoxville was the first place he started really playing and getting some appreciation.
Wow.
In the U.S.
Huh.
Good guy.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Nice. And I've talked to him for, through the years.
Yeah.
He's a really nice fellow.
Okay. Let's do one more anecdote. It's going to be roulette. It can be of your choosing. I just want to hear. You've interviewed so many great people. Okay, so was there an interview that you did that surprised you? Maybe you didn't expect the artist necessarily to bring sort of as much, or...
Well, I'll tell you. I can tell you that the ones that are... Oh, gosh, I got another thing I could tell you, too. But we'll start on this. This is... The best ones sometimes are the ones where they have a reputation for being difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly good with people who are supposed to be difficult because I don't ask them stupid questions. They can tell immediately that I know who they are. And, they start opening up.
Yeah.
So, like Billy Corgan turned out to be a good interview. He's supposed to be terrible. Trying to think who else. Well, this is my favorite one, though. It's because I can use profanity, right, Chris? No problem. Good. I'll tell you another profane one, too. But Will Oldham, who goes under Bonnie Prince Billy, and, he was supposed to be a difficult interview. And I got him on the phone, and we had a great time. We were laughing and cutting up and having a good time. And he says, well, I got to get off. I got to interview. I got another interview coming up. Some guy named Steve Wildsmith. And I said, oh, that's a really good friend of mine. I said, listen, when you talk to him, tell him that the guy that you just talked to said he was a real son of a bitch. So it's like, he says, oh, okay. So I hang up, and Steve Wildsmith calls him and says, hi, this is Steve Wildsmith from the Maryville Daily Times. And he goes, Will Oldham goes, I hear you're a real son of a bitch. And it's like, so Steve is so flustered, I don't think he can do anything. He's like, what? And it's like, I'm sure he got the best interview he's ever gotten from somebody up to that point because Will Oldham thought it was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And it put Steve so off his game that, he couldn't do any prepared questions. He just has to go on. And then I get this angry call afterwards. You just had Will Oldham call me a son of a bitch. It was great. I loved it.
Oh, my gosh. I hope he had that recorded, too.
I don't know if he recorded that or not. I hope he did, too.
Yeah.
I've never asked him. But I'll tell you the one, and I've got this recorded. I have to transfer it to a digital format. One of the times I interviewed Ray Charles, I asked him about Prince. And he was kind of so-so on Prince because he said he was too dirty. And then I knew there's a guy, Wynonie Harris, who was like the king of the double entendres in the 50s. He's a jump blues guy. And so I asked him if he liked that better. And as soon as I said Wynonie Harris, we were like on the same page and we got along great. But I said, well, what do you think about rap? And he went, bippity bop 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 bip. What the fuck is that? I could do that when I was 3 years old. And it was like, this is the best quote I'll ever have in my life, and I cannot put it in the paper. But it was like it was wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah. And okay, how much time you got? I'll tell you something real quick.
We're good. We got, yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay.
We got time.
All right. I'll tell you. One of the best things, I used to tell this when I talked to like journalism classes and stuff. There were 3 instances where in Knoxville there was somebody who was pretending to be somebody that they weren't. The first one was I got a call from a woman who said, do you know who Billy Joe Walker Jr. is? And I said, yeah. I said, he's a studio musician in Nashville, and he had recorded a couple of things on his own. She said, well, I think I'm dating him. He said, that's who he says he is, but I'm wondering. And I said, well, how tall is he? And she goes, he's about 6'2". And I said, Billy Joe Walker's about 5'4". So it's like, that guy's, his ruse was shot. The next one was, I got a call from a guy at a bar who said, I got Billy Bird playing at my bar. And I said, Billy Bird? From Ernest Tubbs' band, Billy Bird? He's a guy, have you ever seen those Birdland guitars that Ted Nugent plays? Well, Billy Bird he's the guy who designed that guitar, and he was a great guitar player in country music. And so I went out and I kind of doubted it. I went out to interview him. And it was like I immediately knew it wasn't Billy Bird. He was, he knew nothing that Billy Bird would know. And I left. And as I was walking out, the guy said, he's not really Billy Bird, is he? And I said, no, he's not. But I wrote something in the paper, saying this guy was pretending to be Billy Bird. And anyway, then it was like I got a call. It was obviously from him on my voicemail. It said, you son of a bitch. And that's the only thing I ever heard. But the best one is Dave Loggins. Dave Loggins is a guy who had the hit Please Come to Boston.
Yeah.
He also became one of the biggest songwriters in Nashville. He wrote half of Alabama's hits. He wrote a bunch of Don Williams things, a bunch of Sawyer Brown, all sorts of Winona Judd's She Is His Only Need. That's one of his songs. And anyway, everybody knows him in Nashville. But this guy had been calling for 2 years telling me he had Dave Loggins in the band. And I said, no, you don't. And finally, I called Dave Loggins and left a message on his machine and said, Dave, this is Wayne Bledsoe in Knoxville. And I said, there's a guy pretending to be you. You might want to do something about it because he's telling everybody he's you. And I don't hear from him. I'd interviewed him before, so I knew him a little bit. And then about a year later, maybe 2 years later, I get a call on my voicemail from Dave Loggins. And he goes, Wayne, this is Dave Loggins. Can you meet me in Gatlinburg this Friday night? And so I called him back, and I set up so I could go meet him. He had to go prove. He went to a karaoke bar in Gatlinburg and prove to these people that he was really Dave Loggins and this other guy wasn't. This guy had been signing autographs, telling people he was going to help them in Nashville. He'd made up this big long story about how he was in special ops or something, all this other stuff. Anybody ever tells you they're in special ops, they're lying. Nobody talks about that if they've been in, something like that. So it was an amazing thing watching Dave Loggins at a karaoke bar proving to these people, I am who I say I am, and this guy is not. And I wrote a big thing, and they ran it on the front page of the Nashville Tennessean. It was amazing. And I got a hold of the guy who'd been pretending, and I said, what happened? I said, did it just get out of hand? And he said, yeah, I just, told somebody one night, and, and just kept going. And then For years. And it was so it's all over East Tennessee. I actually got a death threat from one of his friends over it. I had to call the police. But so it's all over East Tennessee. It's all over Nashville. A year later, I get a call from somebody who says, he's in Chattanooga. He's doing the same damn thing again.
Oh, my God.
So who knows?
Insane. I hope somewhere there's someone pretending to be me and they're just poor, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so no, hold on a second. Chris just took my notebook and wrote down the names Alice Cooper and Hank Williams Jr. And so I'm curious, is there a story that...
Well, I'm not the Hank Williams Jr. one. I'm not sure what he's talking about, unless it's the one in... Is it the one in Newport you're talking about, or what is it?
Just your opinion on him in general.
Oh, I think he has been a really good artist. I think he's a real jerk, but I think he's been a great artist here and there. But the Alice Cooper story, that's one of the great Knoxville stories.
So I was on the radio with Wayne. I host All Over the Road with him every once in a while, and sometimes I'll just bring a stack of CDs or whatever and vinyl records. And I brought a big stack one time, and he was like, "Oh, what'd you bring?" And I was looking through it. And I had Hank Williams Jr. one standing there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not playing that shit." Tossed it off to the side.
Hank Jr. has had some great songs, and then he's had some junk. And I mean, because I'm not a big fan of him personally. I don't play much Hank Jr. I do like the song "Buck Naked," and I like a lot of the songs from the '70s, early '80s from him. But
that's a tough. That's like I feel like a whole other conversation for the radio, which is just like, how do you deal with an artist who is great or good, or just good, and also a horrible human being?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it makes you less, I mean, it makes you not want to play their music.
Certainly.
And sometimes I still play music by people I don't like. I mean, and I probably wouldn't like a lot of the people if I met them, the people I play their music.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, part of it's, I interviewed Judy Collins one time, and I've always liked her music a lot. And it may have been a bad day for her or whatever, but I kind of didn't like her after the interview. You know, I mean, and you know, it could be. It's a lot of times it's just been me,
right?
So I understand that, and I take that in. But it's like I don't listen to her music as much, and I don't play her music as much because I did that interview and I didn't feel the same about it.
Right.
You know? Her music is different for me now than it was before I talked to her. And it's a good thing to never read artist bios because you won't ever like them as much if you read their bios. You know, it's like I love Laura Nero, and I read a bio about her, on her, and it was like it made me like her a little bit less. Same with Nielsen, who's one of my very, very favorites. And it's like the book was so depressing that I don't listen to his music as much as I did.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the bios that I've been... But then again, I feel like that's another one, just talking about musician bios.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so we can get out of here in a manageable time. Alice Cooper.
Okay. I can tell that one fairly quick. Alice Cooper, it was, I think, on the Schools Out tour. Came to Knoxville.
Yeah.
He stayed at what was then the Hyatt Hotel, which is the hotel. I don't know what it is now. It looks like the big typewriter by the Coliseum. It's the odd, kind of weird modernistic one. And at the time, he had a boa constrictor that was part of his act. He would drape it around his neck, and everybody's scared of snakes and all that stuff. So anyway, he goes back to the hotel, and he loses the snake. He loses the snake in his bedroom. And they got to go on the next tour. So, I mean, next show. So... the snake is someplace in that hotel. 2 weeks later, Charlie Pride stays in the same room.
Oh, my God.
And gets into bed and finds the snake. Charlie Pride, who had a hit with The Snakes Crawl at Night. Charlie Pride, who probably thought somebody was playing a really mean joke on him.
Yeah.
Yes, but they found the snake's name was Chena. When I was a kid, it was in the newspaper, and I cut out that clip. When I started working at the paper, I went back to make sure that I was remembering everything correctly. In Alice's book, I talked to Alice about it. In his book, so he was told it came up out of the toilet. But no, it was in Charlie Pride's bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and Alice is a really nice person to talk to, but he didn't like me correcting him about his own story. So. But I said, I got the newspaper clip. They interviewed everybody who was involved.
Yeah.
And, Alice at that time was probably too drunk to know, so...
Oh, my gosh. Wayne, thank you. This has been really wonderful.
No, it's been great. It's been fun. Yeah. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you as well. So to all of you listening, thank you so much for following along. This is the July edition of Meet Music Knoxville. And we haven't picked a guest for next month, but it'll be a surprise, and it'll be surprising. And we're going to learn a lot of great stuff, so just stay tuned and listen to a lot of music here at the station in the meantime. Thank you all. Have a good night.